This is Rhodes Island HR Officer Payper Puscher, performing periodic review of Operator Mudrock's personnel files. Sarkaz mercenary Mudrock, formerly a part of the reunion movement, led her team far from Ursus after disagreements with the organization. She had no apparent involvement with reunion whatsoever during the incidents in both Chernobog and Lungman. Searching for a foothold to establish, Mudrock took her team towards Lithanian. After taking in a great number of Lithanian infected there, Mudrock became a highly esteemed leader, and her team came to be known as the Mudrock Squad. Despite Mudrock's multiple attempts to avoid conflict with other powers, her side was nevertheless drawn into constant disputes. So as to prevent any further meaningless sacrifice, Mudrock chose to head for Kazdel, of all places. She came into contact with elite operator Logos within Kazdel's borders, and left with the latter for Rhodes Island. Now pulling out her medical file, according to her clinical analysis, originium granules have been detected in her circulatory system, confirming Mudrock to be infected with oropathy. Surprise, surprise, the operator coming from Reunion was infected. As she is a former Sarkaz mercenary, we cannot be optimistic about Mudrock's infection. She will require regular monitoring and examination. Moving on, we have different accounts of Mudrock. Accordingly, in order to keep her massive suit of armor upright, Mudrock uses originium arts between the cushioning materials as padding. One could ask whether her tremendous form actually intimidates the enemy, but in fact, it has already led many to misjudge her build and her strength. This arts transformation of hers is truly armed to the teeth, her visor making her voice seem heavy yet diminished. Until the moment she took off her suit, none of our HR operators could precisely determine her gender, myself included. Tangentially, aside from her long-time Sarkaz friends, the astonishment on every Mudrock squad member's face at the examination site said it all. Not even they knew their leader's true form. To quote a Lithanian caster from the Mudrock squad, "But I guess that explains the mysterious Sarkaz woman showing up from time to time in our team. I always thought I was dreaming." Moving on, the analysis of Mudrock's arts aptitude tests. Mudrock's originium arts manipulate stone and soil. Beyond that, she has a natural gift, having grasped several classic and characteristically Lithanian arts forms, as well as an ancient, bloodline-tied Sarkaz witchcraft. Great. Devil hoo-ha. This witchcraft lets her consciousness forcibly intervene in her construct's bodies, allowing what was the unthinking stone and soil to become her own four limbs extended. For example, it's like the difference between holding a sword in her hands and her hands themselves becoming a sword. Put another way, from the angle of combat efficiency, not much difference at all. What's the point? These special originium arts prove Mudrock's Sarkaz blood still flows pure, but aren't effective for strengthening her construct's fighting capabilities. However, this is only in terms of the arts Mudrock presently displays. Considering her future growth, as well as an innate talent shown in her self-taught use of Lithanian arts systems, perhaps these ancient blood-borne methods may become a table-turning ace in the whole of hers. Meriting additional attention is that Mudrock will occasionally refer to her originium arts constructs as friends, both the Colossus and soil clumps alike. Medical assures us that Mudrock does not bestow this title purely from her own individuality or personal interest. Perhaps Mudrock's special originium arts make her regard her Arising constructs with emotion, similar to a handy tool one has used for decades. Or, perhaps, her prolonged use of witchcraft has given her some curious affinity with the stone and soil. All operators have been requested that, should you find Mudrock alone in her room, giving a petite clay figure a sweet smile you've never seen before, please do not be surprised. In the end, her relationship with the soil is likely far greater than her relationship with most people in its intimacy. Well, I guess everyone needs their hobbies. Next is a report on the conditions of Mudrock's onboarding, which states, the infected within Mudrock's group have not had it easy. Mudrock was only compelled to contact Rhodes Island so that they could be given normal care. Mudrock has made it abundantly clear that she refuses to follow the inclinations of other powers. After undergoing initial talks with Rhodes Island, however, Mudrock has been willing to work for us in exchange for her group being able to receive medical treatment. Considering Rhodes Island's precedent of strained contact with Sarkaz mercenaries, the HR department planned to hash out the agreement with her in greater detail. But, so as to not hold up their treatment, Mudrock firmly decided to give up her own position and join Rhodes Island as a cooperative force. It should be noted that even had she not done so, we still would have aided her people, though her persistent attitude is truly rare to see in a Sarkaz mercenary. This has given us a glimpse as to why Mudrock was so welcomed by the infected of Lithanian. While Mudrock was weighing whether or not to become a Rhodes Island operator, she happened to run across Grani, who was vacationing at Rhodes Island. Grani shared with Mudrock a short story about bounty hunters, treasure, and misunderstandings, after which Mudrock appeared to give a rare display of visible happiness. In particular, she seemed happy to hear about the health and well-being of... The ink is smudged here. Big Bill? Operators Falanik and Suzerain further helped persuade her to stay with Rhodes Island in the end. Additional information has been attached about the development of the Mudrock squad, including the details gathered by Logos while in Kazdel. The Mudrock squad were far from fortunate for what they went through in Lithanian. As a result of her rebelling against Reunion's advocacy of violence, Mudrock had absolutely no involvement with Reunion in the reign of terror that befell Ursus. On the contrary, she led her like-minded Sarkaz for Lithanian long before, hoping that in a nation of highly developed originium arts, they could find some place in which they could hide away. Yeah, prosperous yet rotten to the core. Mudrock knew well that Lithanian cities and spires wouldn't readily admit blood-stained Sarkaz mercenaries, so they elected to wander between remote cities, attracting more and more of Lithanians infected during this time. Her benevolence, rare among mercenaries, especially devils, earned her quite the following. Before she realized it, the reputation of the Mudrock squad had spread throughout the infected, though Mudrock often blushes and trails off when this topic comes up. It seems that she doesn't like to talk about her glorious moment of popularity. Yet, all good things come to an end. As we all know, the vengeful lust of the Reunion movement was never contained within reason's reach. While Lithanian as a whole had a milder treatment of the infected, these conflicts naturally spread through other areas due to ulterior motives. After enduring the calamity led by a string of out-of-control riots, Mudrock despondently decided to return to Kazdel, hoping to establish a shelter for her people there. However, this plan was also cut short, again by outside forces she couldn't defy. When elite operator Logos came across the Mudrock squad in Kazdel, there were hardly any Sarkaz warriors left by her side, and the minds, spirits, and bodies of the Lithanian infected, who now outnumbered the original members, were on the verge of collapse. As for what happened to the Mudrock squad between leaving Lithanian and arriving at Rhodes Island, or why Mudrock decided differently at the last minute, were not at all clear. However, without a doubt, they suffered disastrous losses from some Lithanian power pursuing them out of Lithanian. After confirming the opposition was clearly intent on slaughtering every last infected, Logos opted to come to their aid. And finally, we have a summary of what happened at Wollamond after Mudrock's squad left. Why is this bunch with Mudrock's file? This should have been filed with the final report on the Wollamond operation. For the sake of thoroughness, I'll carry on recording, but this clerical error will be addressed later. According to operational records, Wollamond is a nomadic city in the north of Lithanian, which was once brought by a catastrophe to near ruin in a matter of days. Rhodes Island operator Atro lost her life in this incident, and the team of operators dispatched to investigate the incident came into conflict with the Mudrock squad. However, when asked whether Mudrock had engaged in unforgivable conduct, Operator Fallenek hesitated for a brief moment before denying it. What followed Mudrock's decisive battle with Rhodes Island operators, her defeat, and subsequent withdrawal from Wollamond is as follows. The sudden fires and revolts gave the Wollamond officials grounds to recall the gendarmerie from the nobles. With the gendarmerie's aid, the afflicted cities successfully established a passage across the Great Rift. Messengers and supply teams arrived soon after at Wollamond. After the ordeal, Wollamond was deeply wounded, not just due to the loss during the conflict and rioting. Close to a fifth of Wollamond's people betrayed Lithanian. This shadow cast itself deep into the hearts of the locals, and even roused whatever conscience still remained in some of their nobles. And the problems they faced were quite convoluted, but that's nothing new. Based on letters sent by messengers responsible for the follow-up investigations, with the professional evaluation of the gendarmerie, we can confirm that the main instigator of the Wollamond incident, Biederman, died in the riots. The local Schultz was taken in due to his acute oropathy, and whether he's alive or dead remains unclear. Soon after, the nobles withdrew Wollamond's autonomy, deciding to merge its intact areas with surrounding cities in the coming spring. Judging by the experiences Mudrock described, what the Mudrock squad and Lithanian infected saw in Wollamond was just the tip of the iceberg. You can imagine why the Lithanian infected within the Mudrock squad were in such low spirits. We cannot help but recognize that obedience within the Lithanian infected's giant cages may be the only way to eke out an existence in Lithanian. Wait, there's an addendum here. Classified log. On the first night that the local nobles arrived to investigate Wollamond, there was an assassination attempt. After failing, the suspect fled near the Winter Wisp Mountains, where he committed suicide by biting his tongue off. Ugh. He was identified as the local Schultz's only son, Thorwald, who was thought to have died in the fire. The gendarmerie found a letter on his person. I've changed my mind. I'll die in your stead. But there's one thing you have to do for me. If you recognize him, get rid of him. Because of this letter, and the token of a catastrophe messenger carried on the suspect's person, we can confirm that the suspect was an accomplice to Biederman. The noble did not make things harder on Severin Hawthorne, whose life was already in grave danger. But it was obvious he had no goodwill left to spare, and so left Wollamond. Considering that several other operators are involved in this matter, only a small number of authorized personnel and the doctor are permitted to view this document. Well, with that, Operator Mudrock's file has been reviewed. This is Payper Puscher, signing off.